who is respectful to the spiritual master, non-envious, friendly to all kinds of divinities, and eager to render service with faith and sincerity. That's a very nice verse. There's no purport to that. You don't need a purport. We self-evident what it's saying. Let me read it again. Let's see. Instruction should be given to the faithful devotee who is respectful to the spiritual master, non-envious, friendly to all kinds of living entities, and eager to render service with faith and sincerity. Okay, well, we should bow down to a person like that. Text 42. This instruction should be imparted by the spiritual master to persons who have taken the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be more dear than anything, who are not envious of anyone, who are perfectly cleansed, and who have developed detachment for that which is outside the purview of Krishna consciousness. Let me read that last line. It says, who are not envious of anyone, who are perfectly cleansed, and who have developed detachment for that which is outside the purview of Krishna consciousness. Okay, let's read the purport to understand what that verse is saying. Just 1 second, I have to find something.
What do you want?
For my pencil and a pen, but don't have it.
Oh, pencil fell down.
See it? Oh, thank you. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In the beginning, no one can be elevated to highest stage of devotional service. Well, that makes sense. Here, bhakti means one who does not hesitate to accept the reformatory process for becoming a bhakta. In order to become a devotee of the Lord, one has to accept a spiritual master and inquire from him about how to progress in devotional service. To serve a devotee, to serve a devotee, to chant the holy name according to a certain counting method, 16 rounds, to worship the deity, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, and from a realized person, and to live in a sacred place where devotional service is not disturbed, are the first out of 64 devotional activities for making process in devotional service. One who has accepted these 5 chief activities is called a devotee. Okay, so what are the 5 chief activities? One has to accept spiritual master. That's one. And inquire from him about how to progress in devotional service. That's 2. To serve a devotee and to chant the holy name. Okay, We'll start again. To serve a devotee is one. To chant the holy name according to a certain counting method is two. Then all right, let's start again. In order to become a devotee of the Lord, one has to accept the spiritual master and inquire from him about how to progress in devotional service. That's one. To serve a devotee is two. To chant the holy name is three. According to a certain counting method, to worship the deity is number four. To hear Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita from a realized person is five. And to live in a sacred place is six, where devotional service is not disturbed, are the first out of 64 devotional activities. For making progress in devotional service, one who has accepted these five chief activities is called a devotee. One must be prepared to offer the necessary respect and honor to the spiritual master. He should not be unnecessarily envious of his god brother. Rather, if a god brother is more enlightened and advanced in Krishna consciousness, one should accept him as almost equal to the spiritual master. Very important point. And one should be happy to see such god brothers advance in Krishna consciousness. A devotee should always be very kind to the general public in instructing Krishna consciousness, because that is the only solution for getting out of the clutches of Maya. That is really humanitarian work, for it is the way to show mercy to other people who need it very badly. The word susrusa virataya indicates a person who faithfully engages in serving the spiritual master. One should give personal service and all kinds of comforts to the spiritual master. A devotee who does so is also a bona fide candidate for taking this instruction. The word Bahirjata Viragaya means a person who has developed detachment from external and internal material propensities. Not only is he detached from activities which are not connected to Krishna consciousness, but he should be internally averse to the material way of life. Such a person must be non-envious and should think of the welfare of all living entities, not only of the human beings, but living entities other than human beings. The word suchayi means one who is cleansed both externally and internally. To become actually cleansed externally and internally, one should chant the holy name of the Lord Hare Krishna,
Krishna.
or Vishnu constantly. The word diyatam means that knowledge of Krishna consciousness should be offered to the spiritual master.
By the spiritual.
By the spiritual, yeah. The word diyatam means that knowledge of Krishna consciousness should be offered by the spiritual master. The spiritual master must not accept a disciple who is not qualified. He should not be professional and should not accept disciples for monetary gains. The bona fide spiritual master must see the bona fide qualities of a person whom he is going to initiate. An unworthy person should not be initiated. The spiritual master should train his disciple in such a way so that in the future only the Supreme Personality of Godhead will be the dearest goal of his life. In these two verses, the qualities of a devotee are fully explained. One who is to post, one who has actually developed all the qualities listed in these verses is already elevated to the post of a devotee. If one has not developed all these qualities, he still has to fulfill these conditions in order to become a perfect devotee. Okay. Second. Text 43. Anyone who once meditates upon me, meaning Krishna, with faith and affection, who hears and chants about me, surely goes back to home, back to Godhead. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, 32nd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Entanglement in Fruitive Activities. Okay, so this last verse of chapter 32, meaning text 42, is very important. It summarizes the whole Canto 3, chapter 32. So let's read it again because it has a lot of very profound statements. And beginning with text 41. Instruction should be given to the faithful devotee who is respectful to the spiritual master, non-envious, friendly to all kinds of living entities, and eager to render service with faith and sincerity. Wow. Okay. Then, text 42 again. This instruction should be imparted by the spiritual master to persons who have taken the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be more dear than anything, who are non-envious of anyone, who are perfectly cleansed, and who have developed detachment for that which is outside the purview of Krishna consciousness. Okay, they have no interest outside of Krishna consciousness. Very important point. In the beginning, no one can be elevated to the highest stage of devotional service. Here, bhakta means one who does not hesitate to accept the reformatory process for becoming a bhakta. Okay, now that's a very important statement. One has to accept the reformatory process. So oftentimes this word reformatory is usually attributed to the people like what you would call people who have been in jail or have committed sinful activities or committed heinous crimes. But here, and Prabhupada is not mincing his words. He says, here, bhakta means one who does not hesitate to accept the reformatory process for becoming a bhakta. In order to become a devotee of the Lord, one has to accept a spiritual master and inquire from him about how to progress in devotional service. To serve a devotee, to chant the holy name according to a certain counting method, to worship the deity, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita from a realized person, and to live in a sacred place where devotional service is not disturbed, are the first out of 64 devotional activities for making progress in devotional service. One who has accepted these 5 chief activities is called a devotee. Well, one day I was reading this purport out loud in the class, and there was this one devotee that protested. And what let's say caught his attention, that was that where it says, here, bhakta means one who does not hesitate to accept the reformatory process for becoming a bhakta. In order to become a devotee of the Lord, one has to accept the spiritual master and inquire from him about how to progress in devotional service. So the devotee objected about the term reformatory process, because that's usually used for criminals. They have to go through a reformatory process to get out of jail. But it's the correct, that's, in other words, Prabhupada uses the correct word. We all have to go through reformatory process because we've all been criminals in the sense of ignoring Krishna and engaging in sense gratification. But this one devotee, objected the word reformatory processes. It's probably because he, at some time, might have been engaged in sinful activities. I don't know for sure. Well, it's almost for sure because before becoming a devotee, he was engaged in all kinds of sinful activities. Okay, in order to become a devotee of the Lord, one has to accept a spiritual master and inquire from him about how to progress in devotional service. Oh, that makes sense. To serve a devotee, to chant the holy name according to a certain counting method, to worship the deity, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita from a realized person, and to live in a sacred place where devotional service is not disturbed, are the first out of 64 devotional activities for making progress in devotional service. One who has accepted these 5 chief activities is called a devotee. So what are they? One is accept the spiritual master and inquire from him about how to progress in devotional service. 2, to serve a devotee. 3, to chant the holy name according to a certain counting method. Number 4, to serve a devotee. 5, to chant the holy name according to a certain counting method. 6, to worship the deity. 7, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita from a realized person, and to live in 7, to live in a sacred place where devotional service is not disturbed, are the first out of 64 devotional activities for making progress in devotional service. One who has accepted these 5 chief activities is called a devotee. So let's go over them again. In order to become a devotee of the Lord, one has to accept the spiritual master and inquire from him about how to progress in devotional service. So that's number 1.
I think that's expected, Maharaj. After
What?
starting the 5 count is starting after that. So after you accepted spiritual master, so the next 5 that they're referring to is to serve a devotee, to chant the holy name, to worship the deity, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, and to live in a sacred place. So those are the 5.
All right. Fine. Thank you.
Yes.
One who has accepted these 5 chief activities is called a devotee. One must be prepared to offer the necessary respect and honor to the spiritual master. One should not be unnecessarily envious of his god brothers. Rather, if a god brother is more enlightened and advanced in Krishna consciousness, one should accept him as almost equal to the spiritual master. And one should be happy to see such god brothers advance in Krishna consciousness. A devotee should always be very kind to the general public in instructing Krishna consciousness, because that is the only solution for getting out of the clutches of Maya. That is really humanitarian work, for it is the way to show mercy to other people who need it very badly. So instructing, very kind to the general public in instructing Krishna consciousness. Okay, very important point. Because that is the only solution for getting out of the clutches of Maya. That is really humanitarian work. Wonderful statement, because there's so many speculative ways of performing humanitarian work. Now, there's so much humanitarian work going on around the world, but it doesn't purify people. It just perpetuates their sense gratification. So here Prabhupada is explaining really humanitarian work. So what is that? He says, the devotee should always be very kind to the general public in instructing Krishna consciousness. Okay, well, right there. That's what is real humanitarian work. It's not simply feeding people. It's not simply building houses for people. It's not simply helping them engage in sense gratification. No. It's instructing them how to become Krishna conscious, because that is the only solution for getting out of the clutches of Maya. So all these other things that people do in the name of humanitarian work does not really help them become free of the clutches of Maya. Okay, so helping someone become free from the clutches of Maya, now that is real humanitarian work, for it is the way to show mercy to other people who need it very badly. The word Shushrusha Virataya indicates a person who faithfully engages in serving the spiritual master. One should give personal service and all kinds of comforts to the spiritual master. A devotee who does so is also a bona fide candidate for taking this instruction. The word Bahirajata Viragaya means a person who has developed detachment from external and internal material propensities. Not only is he detached from activities which are not connected to Krishna consciousness, but he should be internally averse to the material way of life. Very important point.
Haribol.
Internally, he should be averse to the material way of life. That is a major statement. Yeah, one can engage in devotional service, but still be attached to the material way of life. And that becomes evident over time. But instead of remaining attached to the material way of life, one should be averse to the material way of life. Okay, so what's the material way of life? That is meat eating, gambling, illicit sex, intoxication, always trying to make money and use the money for sense gratification and so forth. Those are all different aspects of material kind of life. But he should be internally averse to the material way of life. Such a person must be non-envious and should think of the welfare of all living entities, not only of the human beings, but living entities other than human beings. The word suchaya means one who is cleansed, both externally and internally. To become actually cleansed externally and internally, one should chant the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna or Vishnu, constantly. Okay, so that's how you become purified externally and internally by that constant chanting. Okay, so continuing, the word Dhyatan means that knowledge of Krishna consciousness should be offered by the spiritual master. The spiritual master must not accept a disciple who is not qualified. He should not be, well, that's important. He shouldn't accept a disciple just because he wants to increase the number of disciples that he has. The spiritual master must not accept a disciple who is not qualified. He should not be professional and should not accept disciples for monetary gains. The bona fide spiritual master must see the bona fide qualities of a person whom he is going to initiate. An unworthy person should not be initiated. The spiritual master should train his disciple in such a way so that in the future only the Supreme Personality of Godhead will be the dearmost goal of his life. Now, see, that's a very important statement. Simply making a large number of disciples is not, let's say, the real purpose of a guru. A guru wants to train people to become genuine devotees. He's not in a race to have many disciples. To make one disciple is already a big endeavor. A real disciple who's not going to fall down. Or if he does fall down, the genuine guru has to bring him back. So that ability to be very patient and help devotees or help people become genuine devotees, that's a full-time work. And it requires a lot of attention. So simply initiating people is not enough. It's the training before initiation that's important, and the vetting of the qualities of a potential disciple. Simply initiating a lot of people is not the real goal of Krishna consciousness. The instant initiation guru who wants to have a lot of disciples, it's not really good. Yeah, he might make a lot of disciples. By the way, let's say someone has 5,000 disciples. He can't even remember all the names of his disciples, right? So that should only be done by someone who's on the level of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada had fewer than 5,000 disciples. He had more people following him, but as far as initiation goes, he initiated fewer than 5,000. There was 4,000 some devotees. But even that is a very large number. How are you going to know everybody's name? How are you going to really take attention, have attention of helping each one of those devotees? Well, Prabhupada was able to do that, but it is not recommended in the Shastras to have so many disciples. Why? Because if those large numbers of disciples begin to engage in sinful activities, the devotee or the initiator devotee will suffer, have all kinds of physical problems. So it's better not to have many disciples.
So Prabhupada initiated 4,794.
Right. Jayapataka Maharaj has initiated 50,000. But look what condition he's in. In terrible condition. But he's like a miracle man. And even though he's had so many health problems, still he keeps going. He doesn't stop. But out of those 50,000 disciples that he has, maybe he has even more now. Just imagine if 10% of them are engaged in sense gratification. Just imagine the heavy karma there is for the initiating guru. So it's better not to take too many disciples, but to be able to take care of those disciples that the guru has. Okay, so
I know that some of these gurus, they have developed a system. It's like an organization of their senior disciples who eventually become kind of counselors. And so I think, I mean, is that like there's a balance between the compassion of how many people they want to reach out and help?
There are possibilities of, you know, gurus who take on many disciples and have a way of maintaining them in Krishna consciousness.
Correct.
No doubt about it. But it's not highly recommended because, if there's a lapse of training, you're going to end up with a lot of neophyte disciples, that are still, engaged in illicit activities. And that'll just cause more suffering for the guru. So he has to have a good program that keeps his disciples, on the right path, Krishna consciousness. So some people can make 5,000 disciples or 50,000 disciples, right? But they have a system that they developed to stay in touch with all of those disciples. Yeah, when Prabhupada was getting sick, the devotees asked him, they said, "Why are you getting sick?" And Prabhupada said, "Because of my disciples. They're not following the regulative principles." So that's a risk that a guru takes. Therefore, it's better not to have too many disciples, but to take care of the disciples that you have. Okay, so there are many nice statements in this purport. It says, and it's all about the culture of how to serve a spiritual master. So it's very important instruction. It says, one must be prepared to offer the necessary respect and honor to the spiritual master. He should not be unnecessarily envious of his god brothers. Rather, if a god brother is more enlightened and advanced in Krishna consciousness, one should accept him as almost equal to the spiritual master, and one should be happy to see such god brothers advance in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so these are the qualities of a genuine devotee, and gives some information about how to respect the spiritual master, but most of the instructions are how to be a genuine devotee. So it says, if a god brother is more enlightened and advanced in Krishna consciousness, one should accept him as almost equal to the spiritual master. And one should be happy to see such god brothers advance in Krishna consciousness. A devotee should always be very kind to the general public in instructing Krishna consciousness, because that is the only solution for getting out of the clutches of Maya. That is really humanitarian work. Now, that's an important statement. Why? Because there's so many people doing humanitarian work today. Thousands. But it is not necessarily really humanitarian work. They're just serving the body. They're not actually serving the soul. They call it humanitarian work, but in reality, it does not really help someone give up illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. It may help them to eat regularly, 3 meals a day. It might help them to have a better house. It may help them to have health, health services of doctors. it may help them to have a better mundane education. But all those things are basically related to the body, not related to making genuine spiritual advancement. So this humanitarian work is, on the most part, mundane. Also, if you become a devotee, all right, your material needs are also taken care of, but they are limited. In other words, there's controlled activities in Krishna consciousness. The whole purpose of spiritual life is to gradually develop detachment from external and internal material propensities. Okay, that's a major statement. Not only is he detached from activities which are not connected to Krishna consciousness, but he should be internally averse to the material way of life. Now, what is the material way of life? Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Material way of life. I should not be attached to that. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Such a person must be non-envious and should think of the welfare of all living entities, not only of the human beings, but living entities other than human beings. The word suchaya means that one who is cleansed both externally and internally. To become actually cleansed externally and internally, one should chant the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, or Vishnu constantly. Okay, so that's a formula to become cleansed externally and internally. So that implies that some people can be externally pure, but may also be internally impure. So you have to be pure externally and internally. And to actually be cleansed externally and internally, one should chant the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna or Vishnu, constantly. That's why Prabhupada taught us to constantly chant Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
So I had a friend of mine. He was initiated by Prabhupada. He was a very advanced devotee at one time. And then he sort of, little by little, lost his taste for Krishna consciousness. So after some year, he used to be a very, very advanced devotee. He also had disciples and so forth. And they sort of like faded out of Krishna consciousness gradually, not abruptly. So I met him one day and I said, Prabhu, I said, are you still chanting? He said, yeah, of course. He said, but I don't chant like you. I said, what do you mean? He said, I only chant once on New Year's Eve night at 12 o'clock. But that one moment that I chant Hare Krishna, it's worth 10 times, 100 times more than all your chanting. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. He's a very clever man.
Once a year.
He was so clever that he cheated himself out of Krishna consciousness by his so-called chanting only once Hare Krishna right at New Year's Eve, like it's 12 o'clock at night at New Year's Eve. Completely crazy. He had gone crazy, meaning that he was not serious about Krishna consciousness. At one time, he was very serious. At one time, he was following Prabhupada very strictly. He actually loved Prabhupada. But something happened, and because of bad association, he was always, very rich, and he tried to get me to get involved in some of the material money-making activities that he was engaged in. And I always refused. You know, he would call me up and said, "Look, it's a great way uh, to make a lot of money, and I want you to join me, and it's guaranteed. We'll make a lot of money." And I would always say, "Well, I'm too busy, chanting and dancing and shouting to get involved, because if I get involved, it's going to take away from my chanting and dancing and feasting."
Mm.
So I would always refuse. I said, I'm not interested in your business. I said, I wish you a lot of success. And he did have a lot of success, right? But he sort of successed his way out of Krishna consciousness.
Mm.
So what good is that? And I knew if I accepted his, generous offers, I wouldn't have time for Krishna consciousness. I'd be running around like him, trying to make good deals and make a lot of money. So, is that the purpose of Krishna consciousness? No, it's not. Better you remain poor than remain rich, and always worry about how to protect the money you have and how to increase it. Okay? So, a very poor person is worried about having money. A very rich person is worried about protecting his money. So both ways, you're worried. So why should you put yourself in a situation like that? It's better to be satisfied with whatever Krishna gives you, let's say, easily, than to try and force yourself to become, a millionaire. And then you're worried about, once you're worried about making money, that's one thing. Then when you have the money, you're worried about losing the money. That's another thing. So both ways you're worried. Whereas the person is satisfied with whatever Krishna gives him and does not take away from his time to chant nicely 16 good rounds every day and engage in devotional service. That means that he has a tangible, real Krishna conscious life. But if you're chasing after money, it's going to be very hard to maintain a regulated spiritual life. It's just like we live on the West Coast, right? And the stock market starts very early in the morning on the West Coast. But on the West Coast, it's not real early in the morning. But on the West Coast, it is very early. You have to start 6 o'clock in the morning. That's when the stock market opens on the East Coast. It's not their 6 o'clock, it's their 9 o'clock, but it's our 6 o'clock. And then this preparation has to take place also before the stock market opens. So basically, it ruins the opportunity of the devotee to chant 16 rounds, because they have to be ready 6 o'clock in the morning for the stock market. Well, they wake up earlier, but it is very disruptive for the consciousness of a devotee. It's very nice to, wake up early, chant your rounds, have prasadam, and, take a bath and everything, So, but if you have to wake up if you have to start your day before 6 o'clock in the morning on the stock market, that means it's very difficult to chant 16 rounds and have prasadam and be relaxed and so forth, So it's not good. Now, of course, if you live in the West Coast. If you live in the East Coast, it's a little easier, but still, that pressure, every day, being on the stock market. Have you ever seen pictures of people on the stock market? Yeah, they're screaming all the time. They're all making bids to make purchases or to make sales. So it's very uh, chaotic, and it goes on for I think 6 hours. So just imagine, the trauma you have for 6 hours, and they're screaming, you know, how much they're offering for a stock or how much they want to sell the stock. So it's very chaotic. Of course, you can be at home and make stock, purchase stocks and sell stocks. But if you're actually in a stock, uh, building where all the bidding and sales and purchases are taking place, is very chaotic. And you can just see how crazy people become for making money. Okay, so Prabhupada says, the spiritual master must not accept a disciple who is not qualified. That's an important point. He shouldn't just make devotees he shouldn't just make people disciples just because he wants to light a lot of disciples. He should not be professional and should not accept disciples for monetary gains. That's another big point. There was this one devotee. He married this lady who claimed that she was the daughter of a very famous man who was very rich. And this devotee who was a sannyasi asked Prabhupada permission to give up sannyas and marry this girl because she was very, very rich. But after he married her, he found out there was a hoax. She was not rich at all.
Uh-oh.
She actually convinced them that she was the daughter of some very, very wealthy man. And he fell for it, and Prabhupada actually performed the wedding ceremony. But after a little while, it turned out that she was a hoax. She was not married in some big family, and she just faked it. And the devotees, and especially the sannyasi, he got permission from Prabhupada to give up sannyas. And Prabhupada performed the marriage of the fake lady to the devotee who was a sannyasi. And then he got permission by Prabhupada to give up sannyas in order to marry her. And you can see pictures of this on the internet. It's unbelievable. But it actually happened. And why did it happen? Because the lady kept convincing people that she was filthy rich. But in reality, she was only filthy. She wasn't rich. And it ruined the life of this devotee. He was a very advanced devotee. He also had disciples, and he was a sannyasi. It all went down the drain, right? Unfortunately. So there are videos you can see Prabhupada initiating this devotee to that lady. And the whole thing was a hoax. Of course, you can ask the question of why did Prabhupada do that? Well, this lady was very, let's say, capable of lying. And she was a good liar. So, unfortunately, but it didn't affect Prabhupada, but it definitely was a real shock to the man that married her, the devotee that married her. And now, when she was married, and her husband devotee was a big devotee, right? So they were living in this temple, and all of a sudden, in the trash that was coming from the room where that devotee and his wife were living, all of a sudden the devotees would see chicken bones in the trash coming out from that room, right? So they they informed Srila Prabhupada that it looked like this previous sannyasi, but now he was married to this lady who claimed to be the daughter of some very, very rich man. She claimed to be the daughter of the owner of what's that car? Very big car company.
Like Ford?
No, not Ford.
Chrysler.
Japanese cars.
Like Honda, Toyota.
Yeah, Toyota. She claimed to be Toyota's daughter. And he believed it, and he convinced Prabhupada also that she was Toyota's daughter.
When people lie, they lie. They do a big lie.
Yeah, if you lie, you might as well make big lies, right? But that was a really big lie. and they believed her, and you'll see on the internet, you'll see where Prabhupada married them, performed the marriage ceremony, all because they all believed that she was Toyota's daughter, where she was just faking the whole thing. She was not Toyota's daughter at all. But they were thinking, well, if the sannyasi marries this girl who's Toyota's daughter, then that'll be very beneficial for Krishna consciousness. No, didn't work out like that. But on the other hand, there were some very, very wealthy women who joined the movement, who were in these big families. There's, of course, what's his name? Who's Ford? Great grandson of Ford.
Amrish.
Maharaj. He was real. And he has been helping Krishna consciousness all these years financially. And in other ways also. He's a very genuine devotee. Very nice man. Very respectful person. Humble also. He has about $80 million. Probably is much more now. He's a descendant of the founder of Ford Company. That was his great-grandfather. Okay, so our takeaway today is the explanation of the qualities of a devotee are in this verse and this purport today. And it says, one must be prepared to offer the necessary respect and honor to the spiritual master. He should not be unnecessarily envious of his godbrothers. Rather, if a godbrother is more enlightened and advanced in Krishna consciousness, one should accept him as almost equal to the spiritual master. And one should be happy to see such godbrothers advance in Krishna consciousness. A devotee should always be very kind to the general public in instructing Krishna consciousness, because that is the only solution for getting out of the clutches of Maya. That is really humanitarian work. See, that's a big statement. That is really humanitarian work. Everybody wants to do humanitarian work. Not everybody, but so many people are engaged in humanitarian work, but it doesn't purify the people that they're helping. That might feed them, it might give them a house, but it doesn't purify them. Okay. And it says the word shushrus virataya indicates a person who faithfully engages in serving the spiritual master. One should give personal service and all kinds of comforts to the spiritual master. A devotee who does so is also a bona fide candidate for taking his instructions. The word Bahir Jeta Viragaya means a person who has developed detachment from external and internal material propensities. Not only is he detached from activities which are not connected to Krishna consciousness, but he should be internally averse to the material way of life. All right. That's a major statement, the material way of life. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending is the material way of life. Such a person must be non-envious and should think of the welfare of all living entities, not only of the human beings, but living entities other than human beings. The word suchaye means one who's cleansed both externally and internally. To become actually cleansed externally and internally, one should chant the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, or Vishnu, constantly. Well, that's what we're doing. We're constantly chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
And also, the knowledge of Krishna consciousness should be offered by the spiritual master. So you shouldn't just read a book, or you shouldn't go to a non-devotee for getting spiritual knowledge. It should be offered by a spiritual master. The spiritual master must not accept a disciple who is not qualified. He should not be professional and should not accept disciples for monetary gains. The bona fide spiritual master must see the bona fide qualities of a person whom he is going to initiate. An unworthy person should not be initiated. Very important point. The spiritual master should train his disciple in such a way so that in the future, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead will be the dearmost goal of his life, meaning the life of his devotee. Okay, there's so many different goals that people have in life, but the spiritual master will teach his disciple in such a way that in the future, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead will be the dearmost goal of his disciple's life. That's very important. In these two verses, the qualities of a devotee are fully explained. One who has actually developed all the qualities listed in these verses is already elevated to the post of a devotee. If one has not developed all these qualities, he still has to fulfill these conditions in order to become a perfect devotee. So, Canto 3, Chapter 32, Text 42 is extremely important. And it's usually the way Prabhupada, the way the Bhagavatam is written, the last verse of a chapter usually summarizes the whole chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And here we have a full summary in text 42 of Canto 32, Canto 3, chapter 32, of the qualities of a pure devotee. And it says in these two verses, I guess 41 and 42, the qualities of a devotee are fully explained. One who has actually developed all the qualities listed in these verses is already elevated to the post of a devotee. If one has not developed all these qualities, he still has to fulfill these conditions in order to become a perfect devotee. Okay, so if you read Canto 3, chapter 32, verses 42, 41 and 42, all the qualities of a perfect devotee are explained. Hare Krishna. So then, text 43, the last verse of Canto 3, chapter 32, text 43 says, anyone who once meditates upon me, meaning Krishna, with faith and affection, who hears and chants about me, surely goes back home, back to Godhead. All right, so here is the sure way to go back to Godhead. Meditate with faith and affection, even if it's only once on Krishna. And listen and chant about Krishna. And surely one goes back home, back to Godhead. Thus end the purports of the third canto, 32nd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Entanglement in Fruitive Activities. Okay, but when you get to the final verses, it's how to get out of the entanglement.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the real subject matter. Thank you very much, my dear devotees. Please reread this, especially
The 42nd
verse and purport. It's very important. I'm going to reread it.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Please chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
And avoid the association of non-devotees. Actually, proactively stay in the association of genuine devotees, and you'll have no problems in life. Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Any questions online?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have a question. We also hear that, lava matra sadhu sangha sarva siddhi hoy. So like a moment's association with a pure devotee can, elevate you, give you Krishna consciousness. But at the same time, we hear these examples where there were people who associated with Prabhupada for a long time, and still they fell victim to, Maya and fall down. So what does that mean? Like, is it like Maya is stronger than moment's association with a pure devotee?
No. It just means that if you become lax in following the regulative principles, you will fall down. If you become attached to something material, it can be a person, or it can be an animal, or it can be a building. If you become attached to it, you can fall down. So, the real prayer of a devotee is, dear Krishna, please protect me so I never fall down from your devotional service. That should be our prayer every day. And Krishna will help you and protect you so you don't fall down. if you actually make that statement every day. Why does someone fall down? Because they do things that lead to forgetting Krishna. Just like there was this one person, his guru wanted him to make a lot of money. So he was trying to make a lot of money, and finally it was by engaging in what you call having a
downline
multi-level
marketing.
So once he started, it ruined his spiritual life, and it really disturbed a lot of devotees, because he would go to all the devotees and try to make them become the down
line.
Right? So instead of being interested in chanting Hare Krishna, he was only interested in making downlines. It ruined his whole spiritual life. And he was a good devotee at one time, but now he got involved in multi-level marketing. Don't ever get involved in that. It's all cheating. And all you want to, and your whole life, you're just trying to cheat people, So there are many different ways that Maya can catch the mind of a devotee. It's not only illicit sex. It's also multi-level marketing. It's also this, or it's also that. That's why every day we should strictly chant our grounds very, very seriously and avoid the association of non-devotees and not be interested in, let's say, activities that can take our mind away from Krishna. Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Chant Hare Krishna always and be happy. Always. And here it says here, a spiritual master must not accept a disciple who is not qualified. He should not be a professional and should not accept disciples for monetary gain. The bona fide spiritual master must see the bona fide qualities of a person whom he is going to initiate. An unworthy person should not be initiated. The spiritual master should train his disciple in such a way so that in the future only the Supreme Personality of Godhead will be the dearmost goal of his disciple. That's our takeaway today.
Haribol.
Dearmost goal of his disciples' life. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai.
Haribol.
Have a good day today, my dear devotees, and think about this verse today and purport. It's full of transcendental statements on how to become a genuine devotee.
Hare Krishna. Any other questions? Okay, we'll see you in the evening.
Thank you very much, my
Hare
dear devotees. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.